Let's move on to the other big news of the day. The Supreme Court has cornered N. Srinivasan again in what has come as another blow for the BCCI chief in exile. Srinivasan has been asked to choose either between the BCCI presidentship or his company Indian Cement's own franchise, Chennai Super Kings. That's a choice perhaps he'll have to make very soon. In the hearing in the IPL spot fixing saga today, the bench told Srinivasan clearly that his investment in Chennai Super Kings will be endangered if he wants to be elected as the next BCCI chief. At the same time, Srinivasan defended his action, saying there is no basis to disallow him from contesting the upcoming BCCI elections, adding that there is no evidence to suggest any cover-up by him. His lawyer, Kapil Sibal, questioned, in fact, and I quote, "Where is the cover-up as being alleged?" unquote. That's not all. The special bench also lashed out at Srinivasan for attending meetings, especially the working committee meet, despite being in exile as president. And Srinivasan, through his lawyer, admitted that mistake, saying he should not have attended these meetings. This is a new twist because all along, both Srinivasan and the BCCI have held that as TNCA president, Srinivasan can attend BCCI meetings. During the hearing, the SC bench also observed that certain amendments to BCCI's Rule 6.2.4 seem to have been done to benefit the president and vice president of the board. According to this, a BCCI official is permitted to have a commercial interest in the IPL. And of course, this remains the very crux of the entire conflict of interest charge against Srinivasan. During the argument, the court also observed and told Srinivasan's counsel that the best option is a reconstitution of the BCCI minus Srinivasan. The Supreme Court also came down hard on the BCCI, saying action needs to be taken on the administrative side. Judges even went on to say who in the BCCI has powers to punish. The Supreme Court has told the BCCI to provide it with options, and the BCCI did so. They gave them 5 options to deal with how to go forward as far as the punishment in the entire saga is concerned. The first option is the BCCI internal disciplinary committee. Second, BCCI could nominate a committee of 2 independent experts. Third, court can appoint a disciplinary committee, or the court can appoint a committee of 2 retired judicial officers. That's the fourth option. And the fifth option is that the Mudgal committee itself can go ahead and decide on the course of action or punishment in the entire saga. If the Supreme Court does not find these options to be satisfactory, of course, it could pass an order of its own and the BCCI would be forced to act. Remember, the BCCI has postponed its AGM twice so that Srinivasan has the best chance to stand for re-election.
आज भी मेरा आग्रह कोर्ट से था, कल भी आग्रह रहेगा कि मुझे ये जानना बहुत जरूरी है कि वो इंडिविजुअल नंबर 2 ऐसा कौन नाम है जिसे बचाने के लिए, नाम सामने नहीं आने के लिए तमाम कोशिशें कोर्ट के सामने की जा रही है.
Well, I mean, the hearing is still going on, and during the hearing there are a lot many observations which are being made by the Honorable Court. I think we must wait for the final verdict. When the final verdict comes, then only it would be appropriate for me to comment.
All right. So the big question is whether the court will actually force Srinivasan to choose between the BCCI or CSK, and what impact that will have on this entire saga. Joining me is senior journalist Pradeep Magazine, who's followed this entire case very, very closely, has deposed in front of the Mudgal panel as well. And of course, Boria Majumdar, consulting editor, continues to be with us on the show. Pradeep, first question, how important do you find this statement from the court that if you choose to be elected as the BCCI president, your investment in CSK could be endangered? Is that effectively a choice being given to BCCI president?
Well, I don't know how the Supreme Court or the judges function, but going by what they have said, they obviously are telling him choose between the two, because the conflict of interest is at the heart of the whole problem. And it's very heartening that the Supreme Court actually has gone into the heart of the problem instead of getting into other nitty-gritties. And they have decided that they are going to confront this conflict of interest issue, and it's because of this the other problems
are arising.
Yeah.
So in a way, N. Srinivasan, no matter how much he tries to step away from this conflict of interest issue, the court is bringing it back again and again. Earlier it had also said, how can a BCCI president even own a team? They were shocked at that. You know, how can this conflict of interest be allowed? Is it fair? Again today saying that effectively the BCCI needs to be minus Srinivasan.
Look, Mayappan is who? His son-in-law, a team official, owner / owner according to the Mudgal panel.
Yeah.
So what does the court do? Does it leave it to the board president to decide on the punishment? The board president who happens to be the owner of the team as well. So obviously the court has, as I said earlier, gone into the right perspective and decided to confront this issue, which all other, the board does not want to get into this conflict of issue. If you see Kapil Sibal, the defense of Srinivasan was conflict of interest, that look, it's not just Mr. Srinivasan's conflict of interest, the entire board or even other federations are riddled with it. So what? Like, you have to start right from the top and clean this whole thing. This conflict of interest actually is killing Indian cricket right from the top, and it just comes down below to every level of the board.
Like the court had said a few hearings ago, it's like a mutual benefit society. The IPL and the BCCI, everyone has a stake in both. It's a complete hot mess, really, Boria. But this is the crucial thing, you know, this conflict of interest keeps coming back to haunt N. Srinivasan. Ever since that amendment was made to justify him owning a team in the IPL, you know, this conflict of interest saga has been going on. And finally, with this spot fixing entire controversy, that's come back to haunt N. Srinivasan.
Yeah, I mean, Pradeep was making a very important point there by saying, you know, what Kapil Sibal has said, that there are issues of conflict of interest with others. Is that an admission of conflict of interest on the part of Mr. Srinivasan? Because that admission of conflict of interest on the part of Mr. Srinivasan will now be registered or has been registered with the Supreme Court. So that's one point proven. The other point for me, and a very significant one, two wrongs don't make a right. So if there has been conflict of interest in the issues in the past, please try and rectify them so that the game can move forward. And game can move forward for the welfare of the fans. But all said and done, Shivani, everything so far is in the nature of observations. We need an order or a directive. Either way, if Mr. Srinivasan is to be indicted, if Mr. Srinivasan is to be reinstated, we need an order, because this, unless an order is passed by the Supreme Court, tomorrow the petitioner will object to whatever the BCCI says, the BCCI will object to whatever the petitioner says. Another point, and then you can ask Pradeep's opinion on this actually, is the Supreme Court is repeatedly emphasizing the fact that it wants to free the game of any vice or any corruption. Now in that report, if there are other players who are actually indicted of doing any corrupt activity, why are those names not being made public? I mean, it's not about the whole report, as Aditya Verma says. Maybe not. But if there has been wrongdoing, unless the BCCI knows who is the person at fault, whichever BCCI, with or without Srinivasan, how can that be cleaned? That is a question the Supreme Court will have to address when it passes an order.
Pradeep?
Well, I am like completely in agreement with what Boria is saying, in the sense that if you look at the Mudgal panel's report, which has been released partly, in which it says that Sundaraman was in touch with so and so, he had told the anti-corruption unit of the BCCI that
such activities
happen, and he was told it's not actionable.
Yeah.
So who were then the ICC anti-corruption unit people protecting? It's not actionable. The same people are now one of the persons who they said was a celebrity, that's why he was in touch with him, was charged by the police.
Yeah.
So what is happening? Are these anti-corruption unit people, were they aware of what is happening? Were they not aware? That's why the second part of the report should come out, that what is written in that.
And Aditya Verma today said, and we played that bite from him, that we want the other individuals to be named to get a clear picture. Very quick last question, Pradeep, I wanted to ask you. If we do go to the scenario where BCCI President N. Srinivasan has to choose between one or the two, will that solve anything? Because critics would say he can come out of the BCCI, still control it, or he could not have a stake directly in CSK and still no action will be taken on CSK. Do you see that as a solution at all?
You know, I think what the Supreme Court's observation is that, look, you can't be both.
Yeah.
So now, if you can't be both, you have to make a choice either with your...
That's the first step in a way.
So that's the first step in a way, that look, that doesn't mean that Supreme Court is saying that, look, you can work through back door.
No, they're not saying that, but is that not the possibility?
So that is what has to be looked at. That's what let's wait for the final Supreme Court order. I think Boria wants to make a comment.
Yeah, Boria, go ahead.
You know what the Supreme Court said, your investment will be endangered. So does it actually mean that Mr. Srinivasan or India Cements cannot continue to own CSK?
Yeah.
We are only conjecturing here. But by saying your investment will be endangered, is it actually talking about CSK going to a different organization perhaps? So who knows? So maybe something might come out of this separation if the Supreme Court pushes the point.
All right, interesting debate has been opened up really by this one comment of the Supreme Court. Boria Majumdar, Pradeep Magazine, thanks a lot for joining us. Of course, the hearing resumes tomorrow and we'll be on top of all the developments from the Supreme Court. The very, very crucial days ahead before that AGM for N. Srinivasan. Thanks a lot for joining us. Goodbye.